Alright, second attempt. Blood moon total lunar eclipse. Stunning photos of our celestial neighbor turning red over the Americas. I previously tried to record this yesterday when it was happening, but I forgot to add myself to the studio, so I didn't get the audio. But that's okay, because this actually gave me time to make even better preparation for this. When you buy through links, I don't know if that's about. A blood moon was visible from the Earth last night, marking the first total lunar eclipse since 2022. A total lunar eclipse occurs when a full moon passes directly through Earth's shadows, casting our planet's natural satellite in a reddish blue-like hue, often called a blood moon. Sky watchers across the Americas snapped photographs of this unusual phenomenon as the moon completed its lunar phase on Thursday night and into Friday morning, March 13th to 14th. Look at that perfect photo of the Statue of Liberty, or Lucifer, the torch lighting up the moon. In North America, one photographer captured the blood moon rising over the Statue of Liberty in New York, while another caught it peeking out of the clouds above the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Interesting. The Golden Gate Bridge, there's some predictive programming of that one, but it being destroyed. But I digress. And you got the whole golden thing, Trump, the Golden Age, the Golden Gate. There we go. Further south photos revealed the moon passing by the Little Prince Monument in El Salvador and the Young Woman of Obyte statue in Mexico City. Now we're gonna pop over there because I thought that was interesting. Who is this young woman of Obyte? And it kind of like works with everything I'm talking about here. So let's move over there real quick. So who is the young woman of Obyte? The young woman of Obyte is a pre-Hispanic sculpture depicting an indigenous woman. It was discovered by farmers in January 2021 in the Huasteca region in eastern Mexico. It is not known who it may symbolize, although researchers consider it to be the goddess or a ruler. The piece was on temporary display at Mexico City's National Museum of Anthropology, and since August 2022, been on display in the town where it was found in Alamo, Temapache Municipality, Veracruz. The replica of the sculpture was slated to officially replace the monument to Christopher Columbus, CC 33, along with Mexico City's Paseo de la Reforma, which was removed in 2020, but it was later occupied by the Glorieta de las More. I'm sorry, I can't say it. I give up. A space for protest against violence suffered by women in the country. Set up by feminists in 2021. Instead, the replica was installed on an adjacent traffic island. Let's skip down discovery. So they found it. Farmers found it. It is not known whom it is supposed to represent. The National Institute of Anthropology and History, INA, consider it was similar to Huastec's fertility goddess. Fertility goddess. And we're about to hit spring here. It's, fertility, spring, new beginnings. It all works. Now we scroll down a little bit more. The history and installation. The government of Mexico City, headed by Claudia Sheinbaum. Who is that again? Take a quick look because it's kind of important to what I'm talking about, and you'll see in the future posts that I'm going to be doing. There's something different about her. She's not just Mexican. I think you probably get an idea just by the name of it, her. But we'll just take a quick pop over since I can't just look it up on the side there, which I was able to do before. What's different about her? I don't know. It could be, I don't know. Oh, it's highlighted this. Oh, interesting. Well, I got to highlight it there. It's, I don't know, nothing to see here, folks. Never mind. I was just, you can't say anything. But I digress. So Claudia Sheinbaum, real Mexican there, announced on 12th of October 2021 that a replica of the young women of Obyte was intended to officially replace the monument to Christopher Columbus at a roundabout along Mexico City's Paseo de la Reforma. The Columbia statue was removed in October 2020 by the local government under the premise of restoration. Later, city officials proposed installing Tiali, an Olmec colossal head by Pedro Reyes, after receiving 5,000 signatures from indigenous women who asked to decolonize Paseo de la Reforma. Reyes' proposal was not well received and was cancelled by the city in September 2021. The sculpture of the young woman of Amajak was originally planned as a 6-meter, 20-foot tall work whose expected cost was 7.5 million pesos, approximately $376,000. It was intended to stand on top of the 19th century neoclassical pedestal created for the Columbus statue. Due to the lack of consensus on the organization of the roundabout, Martí Batres Sheinbaum's interim successor announced that the young woman at Amajak would stand on its own plinth in an adjacent traffic island. Batres inaugurated the sculpture on July 23, 2023, adding that, yes, we could. From today, it becomes a roundabout for the anti-colonists' struggle of indigenous peoples, communities, and women. This all fits the theme that I'm talking about today, but let's move on real quick. So, we were talking about the red moon, the blood moon, bloody moon. What's the blood moon? Blood moon and lunar eclipse magic, that's with a K, often viewed as an omen of destruction to come. We can draw in the cosmic energies of Lord Shiva. Oh, Shiva. Remember we were talking about Shiva in my last video. That's the goddess of destruction, destroyer. Who's also a representation of Shiva, that would be Hanuman, which is the monkey god, who kind of looks like a chimera. There's your chimeric world destruction here. With destruction comes renewal. Use this new clearing as a foundation for a transformation. This is a time to celebrate life, the flow of life, and the blood that runs through your veins. Make peace with your past and understand your shadow self. Balance these energies and enhance something or other. Can't see the rest. Your magical powers, of course. Magic with a K. But I digress. So, you got your Lord Shiva, you got your indigenous feminist statue. Let's move on to, because it wasn't just a lunar eclipse, it was also a full moon. And not just a full moon, it was the worm moon. North America will have a blood worm moon this week. Here's how you can see it. Blood moon. Blood worm moon. This week, robed in twilight, a blood worm will pierce the night sky. As ominous as that sounds, don't think leeches. Think lunar. Late Thursday night or Friday early morning, North Americans with clear skies can look up to see a full moon with a beautiful reddish hue. And while it has that eerie nickname, it's not the only one, depending on different cultures. Blood? This event is actually two occurrences coming together. A total eclipse on the moon, of the moon by the Earth at the same time as it goes through a full moon phase for March. It's not too rare for this to happen. The last March total lunar eclipse was in 1978, according to NASA, though much of North America couldn't see it. The blood part is from the eclipse. When the Earth passes in front of the moon, it obscures the sun's light from hitting it, but some still sneaks through. To understand why the moon turns that color, amateur astronomer Dave Chapman says you have to imagine you're an astronaut on the moon during the eclipse. Yada yada yada. Who cares? So worm. Why are they calling it worm? Timing of this eclipse also aligns with how different cultures around the world refer to the moon during this particular month. Experts attribute the worm moniker to indigenous tribes in the southern U.S. who would see more insects and earthworms emerge during this time of year, and it's stuck through this usage in the Old Farmer's Almanac as March's full moon. But other cultures didn't see those worms, instead calling it by different names. For example, more northern tribes of the northeastern United States knew it as the crow moon, with the cawing of crows signaling the end of winter. To Micmac, whose traditional territories include eastern and Atlantic Canada, the moon around March is known as Sikoku, pronounced Suakawigus or something. Or how do you get a G sound in there? Whatever. Or the maple or maple sugar moon, owing to this time of year when sap starts running down trees. A lot of the time, the moons are reflective of the season and the time of year, saying Hilding Nielsen, an astronomer and professor at Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador. He says this contextual naming of lunar cycles is common. For many cultures around the world, the moon is something you watch and you see things change around you. And so you get various names reflecting community, telling stories and how you operate. So what are the colonial names for full moons? I guess they just call them full moons. I mean, that's all I ever grew up as a kid. There's going to be a full moon. There's going to be a full moon. Now they have different names, indigenous names. Oh, we got the worm moon. We got the deer moon. We got a hunter moon and such. That's why bloodworm, to some, come to be a scarlet crow or even a red maple moon to others. And it talks about the times. Then we gotta go over to the almanac. Worm blood moon, full moon from March 25. Look at that photo. Looks weird. Let's get back down to the names again because they had one more interesting. So the surprising truth behind the worm moon name. March's full moon goes by the name worm moon. For many years we thought this name referred to the earthworms that appear as the soil worms in spring. This invites robins and other birds to feed, a true sign of spring. However, more research revealed another explanation. In the 1760s, Captain Jonathan Carver visited the Nadowesi, Dakota, and other Native American tribes, and wrote that the name worm moon refers to a different sort of worm, beetle larvae, which begins to emerge from the thawing bark of trees and other winter hideouts at this time. Alternative March moon names. There was quite a few names for March moon that speak to the transition from winter to spring. Some refer to the appearance or reappearance of certain animals such as the eagle moon, goose moon, Algonquin and Cree, or crow comes back moon, northern Ojibwe, while others refer to signs of the season. The sugar moon, Ojibwe, marks the time of year. Yeah, we already talked about that. The wind strong moon, Pueblo, refers to the strong windy days that come at this time of year. The sore eyes moon, Dakota, Assiniboine, highlights the blinding rays of sunlight that reflect off the melting snow of the winter, and etc., etc. Like I said, there's a reason why we're having these names of the moons. Indigenous, it's part of the indigenous decolonization and programming of your more Gaia-centric kind of mindset. But I digress. What is it all about? Well, if you know anything about UNDRIP, this is a whole massive subject I have to talk about when it comes to the indigenous, and it's no offense to indigenous people because they're just being manipulated as bad as everyone else. They're being used, and this goes back way, way back. But the point is, they're being artificially foisted to the top. And yeah, that's something I have to cover eventually. It's just such a big subject. but I digress. Indigenous ways of knowing. I don't know if you've heard this phrase before, but it refers to the understanding, skills, and philosophies developed by societies with long histories of interaction with natural surroundings. This concept emphasizes the importance of community practices, rituals, and relationships in shaping knowledge, recognizes that knowledge is subjective and interconnected, often viewing the world holistically, where the physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual aspects of life are intertwined. Overall, Indigenous ways of knowing highlights the diversity and richness of knowledge across different Indigenous communities. Now, you go back to, you may be familiar with Policy Horizons Canada. It's a government think tank paid for by your tax dollars, by the government of Canada. Everyone's familiar with the Biodigital Convergence article that came out in 2021. Another one came out. It's called The Future of Sense Making, and no one really covered that one, but I did, and I'll link a video to that at the in the description of this one. But The Future of Sense Making is a crazy article. There's a crazy video summing it up. Again, I covered it, and you can watch it there. But there's a section in it that was interesting. And yes, it's called indigigogy. So what's indigigogy? Some Indigenous people are using indigigogy, a transfer of knowledge rooted in Indigenous traditions, to help the communities prioritize Indigenous ways of knowing. This is part of a project to rebuild social systems, such as child welfare, education, and to invigorate Indigenous cultural expression. While a broad range of Indigenous worldviews inform indigigogy, many share holistic worldviews, but people are at the center. See both humans and the land as medicine. Humans? Are you going to make humans into medicine? I'm not sure what that means. And evaluate decisions against long-term historical and future backdrops. Example, 7 generations. That sounds familiar to me, but I haven't looked back and just to recap what that is exactly. But I know I've seen it before and such. But yeah. Reconciliation and decolonization. Indigenous peoples express their cultures, values, languages, and ways of knowing in many ways across multiple channels. Indigenous futurism, activism, community development, and scholarship show that continuing vitality of Indigenous ways of knowing, increased awareness of Indigenous worldviews, could help Canadians recognize and reevaluate colonial ways of thinking. Oh, this awful colonial ways of thinking. Oh, all that industrial revolution and having heated homes and energy and modern technology and clothing that keeps you warm, and it's crazy. Yeah, horrible ways of thinking. But I digress. Accepting Indigenous ways of knowing could inspire new perspectives on political economy, institutional reform, the environment, and social policy. Oh man. Let's go back to a time when the Americas were being created. You know, the New World Order. Who were the first people that kind of built America? Well, the Freemasons. Do you think that maybe the Freemasons interacted quite a bit with the indigenous people of North America? You'd be right. So, I want to hop over to the Scottish Rite Masonic Museum and Library blog. There you'll find an interesting section here. Joy Porter writes in her 2011 book, Native American Freemasonry, Associationalism and Performance in America, Oklahoma is unique. Nowhere else Indian membership in Freemasonry on such a scale. What? Indian membership in Freemasonry? Oh, I can't believe it. With much of the early Masonic lodges in Indian Territory predominantly Indian in membership. Native Americans' participation in Freemasonry in the Indian Territory was not limited to the subordinate lodges. The first Grand Treasurer of the Grand Lodge of the Indian Territory was a Scots-Irish Indian man named George W. Stidham, 1817 to 1891. In 1896, Silas Armstrong, 1843 to 1907, became the first man of Indian extraction to be elected Grand Master of a Grand Lodge. Now, I haven't read this whole thing, and there's lots more to read about it, but I've already known this for a while, that the Freemasons and the indigenous people of North America, they have fairly close ties. And I first heard it on a podcast somewhere, and it never left my brain. This is the first time I've actually talked about it. Now, let's go over here to this website, phoenixmasonry.org, and look at this symbol here. You got the square and compass with a phoenix rising. Wow. Native American rituals and the influence of Freemasonry. I wasn't going to read this article to you, but it's definitely got some interesting stuff to go through. I wanted to now touch on some of the, say, predictive programming in books before I wrap this up. I think I'll start with, I don't know if you're familiar with this book. It's called Phoenix Rising, or as I choose that because the website's called Freemasonry, made me think of Phoenix Rising, No Eye's Vision of the Changes to Come. This is a book by Mary Summer Rain. It's got, supposedly, this Mary Summer Rain, that's not her real name, I can't remember what her real name is, but that her name was given Summer Rain by No Eyes. She is a weird story.
The gift of prophecy appears in all cultures, from ancient Egyptians to Native Americans. And sometimes this prophecy is transmitted purportedly through another person, an emissary, if you like. One such person was a Native American woman by the name of Mary Summer Rain, who claims to have received prophecies from an Indian seer by the name of No Eyes. Through a mystical vision, Mary believes she was chosen, not as a prophet, but rather as a messenger of prophetic warnings. And she was given a name, Summer Rain, by her mentor and guide, an 80-year-old Chippewa woman. This was the woman known as No Eyes.
No Eyes learned to see into the future and to forecast what was going to happen. No Eyes was the greatest visionary of our time.
As a young woman, Mary was living with her husband in suburban Michigan when she had a prophetic dream that signaled her future.
I had a dream that No Eyes appeared at the end of my bed, and she had a message for me.
You not who you think you are. You Summer Rain. Soon you move west.
When I woke up, I didn't know if it was really a dream or if she had really said that. I talked it over with my husband, Bill. We had no idea what Summer Rain meant, but we did have plans to move west. In 1977, we did move to Colorado.
While in Colorado, Mary pursued her lifelong ambition of becoming a novelist. But after hundreds of letters of rejection, she began to give up hope.
When I got my last rejection back, I was very depressed. So I took our pickup and started driving out into the woods. I didn't know where I was going. And when I found a spot that I really liked, I stopped and got out. I walked over to a log and I cried my eyes out. Suddenly I had the chills go up my back, and I looked up and there was an old woman standing in the pines.
Summer Rain, you come.
My God, it's you.
You can imagine how spooky that was for me. She led me up to her cabin, and from then on, she became my mentor and friend for 2 years.
Some are gonna hear about signs and sounds.
She taught me all the old ways. She taught me true spirituality. Eventually, it got into more complicated lessons of how to do visions, how to see into the future. No Eyes had many ways.
No Eyes saw the future in the form of a great phoenix, a bird that would rise from Mother Earth amidst terrible devastation.
When great phoenix come out of Earth Mother, her skin gonna tear bad.
You mean earthquakes?
Great storms come. They cover all towns. Summer and winter all mix up.
Floods, earthquakes, Mother Earth rising in revolt. But the great phoenix also warned No Eyes of upheaval caused by man.
He gonna hear bodies hit the ground.
No Eyes starts giving her prophetic visions that she's seen of the future to come, and there's a lot of crazy predictive programming, things that have happened already and things that will happen, because it all fits with everything else that I've been looking at. But anyways, very interesting. This book actually was pointed out to me a few years ago by one of my then friends that's a Patreon supporter, Patricia. So thank you and shout out to Patricia for telling me about this book, because it has played a significant role in some of my research. I appreciate that very much. Oh shoot, my book expired. The reason why I want to talk about this, forward again. Hopefully it kept my place. Page 132, or 142 out of 180. There's a section in it. Just, here's the thing. Aside all the destructive things in the future she's predicting, she predicts this kind of utopian section of it that caught my eye. It's a short little blurb here. I'm just going to read from this part. She placed a finger on her lip and led me slowly downward. The persistence beat remained constant. I was expecting it to gain in intensity as we neared the Earth. Oh, see, here's a lot of things. She takes her on these like journeys through to the future. They both have like a collective vision, and this is like part of the way she teaches her stuff. It's crazy. The persistent beat remained constant. I was expecting to gain in intensity as we neared the Earth, but it continued to palpitate at the same soft decibel, an almost inaudible rate of vibration. We descended upon a sun-touched western plain. Western plain makes you think North America. It is all about North America, actually, so that makes sense. That was literally teeming with grazing cattle. Their combined lowing was humorous. I looked to my friend for explanation of the common sense scene. What's so unusual about this? Some are better... This is No Eyes now. Some had better take longer look, she instructed. I returned my gaze to the four-footed people. She refers to cows as four-footed people, by the way. And after watching, you know, it's kind of appropriate because they treat us like cattle, right? So it's, yeah, it's this. Anyways, looked at the four-footed people for a short time. I realized what made them so unusual. There's entire families of cattle here. Look, No Eyes, look at those old ones. I was so completely taken up with the amazing scene. It was like I was the one showing her something. She was smiling. I couldn't get over it. I actually found it difficult to believe my own eyes, and my heart leapt with joy while I moved in closer to the animals. I looked deeply into her large brown eyes and realized they'd never be heartlessly led to the slaughterhouse. They'd never be eaten. And I felt like crying as I attempted to touch the soft, downy fur of a calf's head. It sensed my presence and romped off to its mother's side for safety. I looked back at my teacher. She was monitoring for me to look in another direction. Now, old cows never to be eaten. Wow, that doesn't sound like an agenda-based little section. A little predictive programming there. It seems like to be coming true. You can't eat the cows. Anyways, that was interesting. There was more though. And when I followed her finger, I saw hundreds and hundreds of acres of wheat that wavered gently in the wind. Then she pointed to more acres that grew healthy tall corn. Now this stuff is kind of fictional. Like, there's no way. I mean, they might let you grow some things, but most things are going to be created in a laboratory, let's be honest. So this doesn't depict all of the future, it depicts some of the future. I mean, you can't get it all in one book, that's the thing. If one book told you every single thing that was going to happen, it'd be a little too on point, but, you know, it's scattered throughout all these books, little things about it that if you put them all together, you get quite a good picture of what's going on, or what's coming. Where am I? So the corn rustled as it too swang in joyous giving song, and the alfalfa merely whispered as the tender fingers of the wind plucked upon its deep grain strands. I wanted to listen forever to this hallowed symphony of earthly peace, but my teacher was only beginning. I was led elsewhere. We're going to see some building stuff now, she said, lightheartedly, as we drifted into a residential area. Residential area makes you think of like a neighborhood in a city, hey? New sounds came to me, harsher sounds. Men were laughing and humming as they busily hammered and nailed and sawed on the new houses. The sounds are different from the construction noises I was used to hearing, and the sight of the product of their effort was most unusual. The men were constructing houses that didn't look like houses at all. They were circular. They were partially underground and utilized the sun for their only source of power. Then I realized why the construction sounds were different. I didn't hear any of the usual deafening power tools. The men were manually sawing and nailing. My teacher spoke. Plenty stuff gonna be different in future. I was truly amazed by the houses. They were all in the earth. She smiled warmly. Yep, they be like Earth Mother. Earth Mother like them there. She liked being one to hold people. Upon closer inspection, I made observations about the houses' new configurations. They're circular. Yep, they be round and keep unity of energy within. I was so happy, I must have looked like a real idiot standing there grinning from ear to ear. She pulled on my arm. We not be done yet. I followed her to a church, and then it goes on. But anyways, interesting, huh? It's like it's a very small communal kind of living out in whatever allowed community. There's actually, wow, this makes me think of something else I want to bring up.
The time has come to bring the forward thinkers and solution-focused people of the world together and demonstrate the large-scale implementation of sustainability, mobilizing a global collaboration for the creation of open-source blueprints for a sustainable civilization and the benefit of the entire human organism. With the technology already existing for zero-waste living and 100% food, energy, and structure self-sufficiency, we can put it together, all in one place, and show that it works. Taking the self-sufficiency and abundance of that infrastructure and sharing and helping others to build upon it globally. Visionary people creating an entire culture of sustainable, fulfilled living practices founded on cooperation, collaboration, and relearning what life can really be about. As people of diverse skill sets, gifts, passions, and talents, it makes sense to create a full-time collaborative environment, demonstrating a living model that maximizes time for creation and innovation while making a difference by providing tools, tutorials, and resources that are actively shared with the world. Doing this, we work together to explore, evolve, and co-create a new method of living consciously, proactively, happily, and in harmony.
So, what I take from this is that they're living in small communities, semi out of in nature, only small village type style, and they're not allowed to use any energy. Don't have power tools, and you're not allowed to eat the cows. You can just look at them. I guess maybe you can use their crap to fertilize your wheat that you're allowed to grow your allotted amount for the year. Who knows? Whatever you can glean from this. But there was another thing, I don't know what page it's on, and I don't have time to look for it. but there's another section of it talking about how the indigenous, the native peoples, are going to get their day, basically. They're going to be risen to the top, is what she says in this book. And it made me think of all the other stuff I've been researching. And again, this has nothing to do with the indigenous people as individuals. I mean, a lot of them can be brainwashed into a victimhood mentality and get sucked up into this stuff. But them as individual people are not to blame, and I don't blame them. This is an agenda that's way beyond them, way above them, and they don't even know it. Some might know it, who knows? But I digress. Now, another piece of predictive programming I want to touch on that falls into a similar category is The Woman on the Edge of Time. This book, brought to my attention by the great Camille. Please Stop the Ride. Always excellent work. Please follow, like, and share her channel. But anyways, I digress. Let's see. The Woman on the Edge of Time, written by Marge Piercy. What's interesting about Marge Piercy? I'll have to look at that in a second here. So this book, The Woman on the Edge of Time, is about this woman, Connie. She's this Latino woman. She fights against authority and injustice, apparently. And she has a poor background, troubled life, all that stuff. And yeah, that's not important. But she gets institutionalized for being crazy or whatever. And there's a lot of crazy stuff in that alone, that whole thing. They are putting electrodes in people's brains and screwing with their heads and stuff. It actually mirrors what's happened with the MK Ultra and stuff like that, but I digress. Let's get back to what I'm actually talking about. So whilst in the institution, Connie starts to have visions of a woman named Lucente. Lucente is from the future, and Connie has spoken to her before. Lucente takes Connie to her commune-like home. The little commune-like home in the future to show her what a good place it is. It's a place without poverty, without inequality, and a place where everybody is loved. Everyone loves everyone. It's a very brave new world of you to say. In order to achieve true equality, not archive. In order to achieve true equality, women no longer bear children. Oh, that's a very brave new world of you too. It is done now by a machine in a building known as the Brooder. There is also no family unit. Oh, that's destruction of family. That's wonderful. And everybody lives together as one community. Wow, just like Brave New World, except this is the utopian version of it. Oh my. Well, Marge Piercy, there's something about her, something that sticks out. I don't know. Could be, what's this highlighted down here? She was raised by, Jewish by her mother and the Orthodox Jewish maternal grandmother, who gave Percy the Hebrew name of Mara. So she's a progressive, American progressive activist, feminist, and writer. Her works include Women on the Edge of Time and He, She, and It. I've not read that, but it looks like something I should be reading. Novel setting is post-apocalyptic America and follows a romance between a human woman and a cyborg created to protect her community from yada yada yada. Probably from the straight white male colonialists. So she's Jewish heritage. She's a Marxist, social, and political activist. Wow. But I digress. So what did I want out of this? No, that's fine. Very interesting. Very similar, right? You got your little communal living. But this one's a little more on point with the mixed Brave New World style brooding and everyone belongs to everyone else. But let's check out Brave New World real quick, eh? So quick note about Brave New World. The motto of it is community, identity, stability. The whole part is that everyone has to belong to everyone else. Everyone has to have, there's no individualism. You have to be part of one of the community. It's a communitarianism. That is the goal of the New World Order, is to create communitarianism throughout their mega region smart cities. To maintain the stability, the world controllers have devised a system wherein different classes of people, alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons, correspond to different levels of power, intellect, and wealth, with alphas at the top with the best jobs and epsilons at the bottom with all the grunt work. And we jump over here. In contrast to that, in Brave New World, was the Savage Reservation, in which an area where the technologies of the world state have not been introduced, the savages still give birth. Still birthing monsters. Believe in gods, and they believe in gods too, and endure physical pain and emotional suffering. The people and customs of the Savage Reservation are modeled loosely on the traditions of the Zuni Native Americans. The setting of the reservation allows the novel to contrast all historical societies from the Neolithic era to Huxley's own with the society of the world state. Now, see, where everything I've talked about is all blueprinted in Brave New World for the most part. I think with the Women on the Edge of Time, it does make sense how they're going to blend the two, because you're going to have your Gaia Earth mindset, you're going to have your green Sunday, green Sabbath, and you're going to have to give up meat. You gotta save the planet. You gotta live in these communes, or at least a communitarian, like your 15-minute neighborhoods in your 15-minute cities. Everyone has a communitarian mindset. It's all for the greater good. You have to serve. You have no individuality. You'll have no privacy. And you'll always be rated as an individual, but you are not allowed to have an individual mindset. You can't think for yourself. And that is part of the goal. The agenda is to achieve this, and they're going to use indigenous ways of knowing to push this, because if you look into UNDRIP, it's all about pushing indigenous decolonization into all aspects of life in North America, in Canada, the US, it's Australia, any place that's heavily colonial, be first to go. But it gets crazier in this, because as I'll cover in a different video at some point, but there's a thing called indigenous immigrant. Yes, I kid you not. Indigenous immigrant. They don't define what indigenous means in UNDRIP. That's the United Nations Declaration. What does UNDRIP stand for? I'm forgetting now. The UN Declaration of the Rights on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. That's what UNDRIP is. 2007. It hasn't been fully accepted in all places. It's pretty much invaded Vancouver, pretty hardcore. BC, Vancouver is one of the hardest hit by UNDRIP, for sure. But I can't go into it. It's too big of a subject, but it has a lot to do with, a certain tribe. A certain tribe does play a big part in it as well, especially with the whole residential school denialism aspect by, that bill in Canada by little Leah Gazin. Who do you think, what tribe she's from? Not just an indigenous tribe. But I digress. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll definitely cover more on that at some point when I get time. But yeah, it's a crazy subject. This is VenomnymouS reporting from the Brave New World. I'll catch you next time.
No way, punk!